Jay, for you, what makes the collaboration between Crayon and Adobe exciting, and where can you see the partnership developing?
So I think it's a really interesting time because the partnership between Microsoft and Adobe is huge. Microsoft are famous for intelligent cloud as your productivity when we look at modern workplace, Office 365, Microsoft Teams. And obviously Crayon are a huge Microsoft partner. And I think that when you look at all of your customers, they'll be buying Microsoft from Crayon and obviously taking some of those services that are offered by Crayon to help them roll it out, implement and integrate within their working environment. But also these customers have Adobe and Adobe Acrobat and Adobe Sign fully integrate with modern workplace. So, with Microsoft Teams or Office 365. And I think customers really have a great opportunity to learn from Crayon how to really take advantage of those technologies and making sure that they get a maximum return on that investment.
From a joint proposition that Adobe and Microsoft, is a real key focus, where do you see the roadmap going for 2024? And more importantly, where do you see it in the current guise?
Yeah, I think what's unique about the Microsoft and the Adobe partnership is actually that both organizations invest not just revenue dollars, but there's also joint collaboration between the development teams. So there is, if you will, I don't want to call it out of the box, but an automatic integration that can happen from a customer perspective with those applications quite easily. That roadmap obviously is developing for Microsoft. So, for example, we've just seen the release of Microsoft Copilot.
Yeah.
The output, and somebody at Microsoft put this very well, which is, a lot of people use Microsoft internally from a productivity perspective, to create documents and information. But actually, when those documents and information is shared with customers externally, they're normally in a PDF secure document format, or indeed we're looking for some kind of acknowledgement or signature from the customer, which again needs to be secure. And so what is great is that if people have been using Office 365 and Microsoft Teams to generate information to interact with their customers, their suppliers or their employees, is that even with the use of Copilot, that integration will be there as well. So if we're asking Copilot to help generate a document or some content for a document, and that document still needs to be communicated with the customer, client or supplier, then the great news is Adobe will automatically integrate with that.
Do you see any specific benefits for organizations as part of the partnership between ourselves and Adobe and also Microsoft?
Yeah, I think when you look at any customer, they will have a number of business challenges. And I think that comes around recruiting and retaining customers. It comes around, again, attracting talent and retaining talent within the organization as employees. It's around probably doing more with less, which I think is a bit of a Microsoft slogan, but a lot of organizations face a lot of challenges around cost and trying to do business effectively and obviously, generate profits, whether it's for the organization or the shareholders. I don't know whether organizations really get into the intimate detail of technologies and the products. And even though there's an IT function, business sometimes drive the needs of IT and IT sometimes supply the needs of business. And so for me, I think what the partnership does, it takes a lot of that complexity away and allows that innovation to happen with little or no cost. But also I think with the partnership with Crayon that the customer has with you guys, that they have the opportunity to drive some kind of automation or automatic document generation or something similar.
Jay, for you, what makes a good partner for Adobe?
So I think a good partner for Adobe is an organization that has the ability to, take all of the different technology vendors, some of the technology trends that are happening, and really help customers understand and embrace, what that change or opportunity is for change, and how Crayon, for example, could help that customer realize that. So if I think about Microsoft and Adobe as an example, Microsoft and Adobe as two technology companies are very large. The number of technologies available is quite wide. And I think it's around how customers can realize the investments that they've made in those companies. If they're using Office 365, Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Dynamics, how can the integration of Adobe and those technologies really benefit the way that they manage and deal with their customers, with their employees and their suppliers. So for me, that's one of the major benefits, but also not just around the delivery of the licensing and the complexity of licensing, but also thinking about the services that could well help accelerate the way that the customer can roll out and realize that technology quickly.
From Adobe's perspective, where can you see the generative AI and AI more importantly playing a place moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, AI is it's a very poignant topic right now, and I think there's a lot of concerns around the ethics around AI, and that's probably getting more interest in the press.
Yeah.
But actually, when you look at AI as an overall technology opportunity, it allows organizations to automate perhaps what would have been resources manually inputting and entering data, whereas now we could use AI, Copilot being an example from Microsoft, to be able to accelerate or automate some of that. But also, I think what is interesting is around the generative AI, around content creation and imagery. And an example of that we were shown only earlier this week at one of our internal meetings was around the fact that somebody had taken a photo which could have been a seaside town in the north of England, and using generative AI, we could actually make that look like it was somewhere in Brazil or in the Caribbean, because we were able to change the textures and the colors of the water. We were able to insert mountains that didn't exist in the actual photo.
Yeah.
Generative AI was able to not just put the mountains in there, but put the right lighting and contour to make it look like it had been there the whole time. So I think, when you look at organizations, the cost of branding, advertising, content creation, that might involve physical travel.
Yeah.
Agencies to actually design and build these kind of images to make them exactly what the customer's looking for. And now generative AI can play a part in automating some of that. Again, I don't think it wholly replaces. I just think it offers the opportunity to speed things up.
And where do you see 2024 coming into play for Adobe mainly? I mean, is it around a particular technology offering? Is it more around collaboration? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think 2024 will be even stronger for us. The partnership with Microsoft goes from strength to strength, and we're seeing that now with the announcements of Microsoft Copilot, and obviously the integration with Adobe Acrobat and Adobe Acrobat Sign, which I think is really important. Actually, for Adobe, we've had some huge announcements ourselves, and one of those is around Firefly. And Firefly is our own AI, generative AI technology. And that's the engine really that we're starting to utilize or integrate with a lot of our existing technologies. So as an example, with Creative Cloud and Substance, we're able to use Firefly to allow users to create their own imagery, which perhaps once upon a time would have taken an agency or an external experienced designer to do, that now they can use that technology to do that, make it easier for everybody and accessible for everybody to use.
With the Microsoft partnership specifically, can you share a bit more detail on what that looks like and what is the actual kind of reality of that?
Yeah, sure. So I think having worked at Microsoft, I'm in a fortuitous position that I now work for Adobe, but I understand what partnerships look like for Microsoft. And for me, and one of the unique aspects is the fact that both organizations have invested over $1 billion. And that $1 billion is not just around marketing or launches or anything like that. It's more around how can we bring our technologies closer together, allow customers to be able to unlock that integration almost instantaneously, but also thinking about how partners like Crayon can help those customers really drive some kind of automation, integrate with Power Automate, drive some workflows and some processes. And that's really important as well. I think the other side for me as well is around the fact that we automatically integrate with Azure Active Directory with single sign-on and multi-factor authentication. So when you typically look at vendors that work together, when it comes to the security and the management of those users, or maybe even in terms of user access rights, that's where it kind of falls down. But in this Adobe and Microsoft partnership, that's something that's been addressed as well. So any customer that has defined the user rights and user access using Azure Active Directory, it automatically gets applied to the Adobe solutions and environment that it's working within. The other key thing, and some other benefits that I really think come to life, is around that some customers do think about sustainability but don't know how to approach it.
Yeah.
And some customers think about accessibility in terms of how can we help it easier for users maybe with colour blindness, with limited vision, limited hearing. How can we make the environment more productive for them? And the way that the integration works is that actually we offer the ability for communication to be sent in digital form, saving the cost of paper, print, postage. But also from an accessibility perspective, because we embed and integrate with Microsoft Teams and Office 365, it allows us to be able to offer that functionality across all of the application stack.
So for any customers today listening to this, what would you say is a key takeaway for them, and where should they be looking at, investing or perhaps talking to Crayon or Adobe?
Yeah, I think any customer that's listened to what we've had to discuss today, for me, I think number one is engaging with Crayon, whether it's with your Microsoft Account Manager or your Adobe Account Manager, and really trying to get to understand where your investments are today. So what do you own from Microsoft? Maybe what you have from Adobe. And if you don't have Adobe, where could Adobe play a part? Thinking about the production of PDF documents, thinking about digital signatures, thinking of ways that they could automate and save time and cost and resource in communicating with customers, suppliers, and employees. I think also what's important for me is that customers realize that they don't need to do this on their own. So it's not a case of they need to understand the complexities and try and work through those. They can actually work with Crayon as a collective and work with the Crayon services team and the modern workplace team to be able to understand how those technologies could benefit their environment, looking at the way that their sales or technical or operational people are working with customers and thinking about, is there a way that we could automate some of those interactions, remove paper, postage, and print, but also, it's not even just around sustainability, but for me, it's around, it could even give them a competitive edge. Maybe their biggest competitor has still got a very manual process, and the opportunity for that customer to, acquire that product or that service might take 2 weeks, whereas by automating and using the digital integration between Adobe and Microsoft means that they could maybe do that in 2 hours or 2 days. And obviously that's something huge in today's world.